I'm going to start this next video by putting this book up again about they thought a cataclysm happened 9500 BC. Also, they thought that the last passage of Nibiru was in 556 BC. Now, according to these particular cataclysms that occurred, with possibly the last time Nibiru came by was in 556 BC. If you add in the 1,000 years of fake history, that means that Nibiru would be popping in around 2045. Now, we can clearly see some maps showing previous versions of the United States, and I'm going to show some of these real quickly. Now, you can see as water or ice or whatever started to come down through these areas of the United States. Each time this area gets wider and wider and wider. Now, whether this is polar ice melt, a lake, they're saying that this might have been called Lake Bonneville at some time. This looks like an inland ocean, and they're saying that it was at some point, and it was called the Aripenc, Ariapenc. Now, let's take a look at some more pictures. Here's where things get interesting. This is Joplin, Missouri over here. And this is Jerusalem, Utah, which is right at the base of a mountain range with 12,000-foot peaks. Joplin, Missouri was called the Promised Land. It was beachfront, oceanfront property given to men who fought in World War I. Now, if in World War I that was beachfront property, that wasn't that long ago. Now look here in Jerusalem, Utah, what cross you see. And what do we see right here? Larch Christensen Spring. A spring at the base of a mountain, and you can see that clearly there were several layers of water lapping up on here. This was an ancient ocean shore. That was a mountain, an island range sticking out of there. This cross is called the Cross of Confusion. Look up the Cross of Confusion. Why is the Cross of Confusion in Jerusalem, Utah? A place where used to be beachfront property, right by the Great Salt Lake, which emptied out into the Grand Canyon, creating Baja California in 27 minutes flat, when a great flood occurred. There's a picture of the Grand Canyon from space. You can see that stuff was emptying into that thing from all angles. You can see from the satellite imagery that water was running into this thing. This was a spillway. During the Poleshift or whenever, this emptied out in a quick hurry, creating a 20-mile-long chasm under the ocean floor. And then it filled up like a bathtub, hiding that portion of the Grand Canyon from view. I believe they call it the Monterey something. I'm trying to show you a picture of it. They won't let me put it up. Now, we all know about the third temple being built and word of red heifers being sacrificed to build a third temple. Why would they build a third temple? There's still a second one standing. Well, I don't know. Why is Mitt Romney saying they're going to build one in Utah, a place where there's massive amounts of high mountain peaks? And we all know that Utah is quite an interesting place. Why is Mitt Romney building a secret third temple in Utah? Was the red heifer sacrificed for the four corners of the third temple? You'd have to ask those in the know. Here are all the high peaks right outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, if a 400-foot tsunami washed into America it's not washing over these peaks in Utah, right by Jerusalem, where there's a cross of confusion to maybe lead people astray, where the real Jerusalem is, where the sea is actually parted, creating the Grand Canyon in 27 minutes. Jerusalem, Utah, is where the sea is parted. The Great Salt Lake is the evidence. There's no such thing as a salt lake. There's a salt ocean. And if it were to drain out, and you can see that in the western half of the United States, a large amount of water drained out of there in a quick hurry. So is Jerusalem, Utah, where the Red Sea parted? Is that where the Red Sea parted? Is that the Great Salt Lake? Not the Salt Lake, not the average Salt Lake, not the medium Salt Lake, not the kind of okay Salt Lake, the Great Salt Lake. Whenever they call something great, why? That is what a beautiful island would look like in Utah, where no tsunami's coming. Now, you could live up there and you could chill. You got some water down here. You got some beachfront property. Got yourself a couple bunkers up in here. Not too bad. Middle of America, island chain. What was the island chain they said? We're going to run through a couple stats since we got some beautiful scenery behind us. Okay? There's a map of Utah from back in the day. And Jerusalem would be, right in here somewhere. Of course, this would all be saved if there was a big deluge of water that came this way, wouldn't you? So, in 1586, the first temple was destroyed and Jerusalem fell. In 1556, Nibiru passed. 1586, Jerusalem fell. 1556 was the Poleshift. Nibiru came by. In 556, the last Babylonian king. In 539, Babylon was conquered. In 520 to 516, a second temple was rebuilt. And in 515, the second temple was complete. So we've got Utah building a secret temple, red heifers being sacrificed, and of all things, the two highest peaks in Utah are called Twin Peaks. Yeah, like the TV show. Clearly, Utah is key. There was an ancient ocean all over in Utah. Everybody knows about the Grand Canyon and the Egyptian artifacts and the belief that Israel and all of these other places and Egypt were here. I also believe that. And I believe that the Great Salt Lake is where the Red Sea parted. And that's where they were in Jerusalem, Utah. I might be wrong. Silver Island Range were islands 16,000 years ago. There used to be a sea there. There used to be inland oceans. There's all kinds of stuff going on in Utah that they don't want us to know about. And for reasons, clearly, that they don't want us to know about. Everybody knows that sand is the bottom of an ancient ocean. Utah is completely covered with sand and monuments that prove that water left there in a quick hurry. Is Jerusalem in Utah? You tell me, you're the smart one.